Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Dynasty SZN. Thanks for watching the podcast. If you guys can go leave a like and subscribe, turn on those notifications, make sure you leave a review on Apple or Spotify. Make sure you guys are getting the latest content as soon as we put it out. If you want to see more from us, check out these rookie prospect videos. Make sure you check us out on Patreon. The link will be in the bio. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Dynasty SZN. We're going to break down a little bit of the breaking news that happened over the weekend. Kind of go over a few teams that have a little bit of salary cap space going into the tampering period that starts tomorrow. And then the big topic for this episode is going to be running back buy sells. Like, who is overvalued in Dynasty that you may be able to sell and you think they're not worth what you can get? Or who is undervalued? Who's one of those guys that you think is a bargain to go buy that people are, looking over? And we'll kind of go from there. The biggest breaking news, which everybody is talking about, is Tom Brady unretired. So, Austin,
imagine if you dropped him.
can you imagine
Imagine you're
dropping
sitting
Tom
here in your
Brady?
dynasty league. I checked a guy in our league who had him. He only has him and one other quarterback. And I was like, did he drop him? No, he's
Yeah.
still holding on. But imagine if you dropped him.
I was at dinner with my family, and Luke was there, and I turned around. I said, "Tom Brady just unretired," and the first thing he did is pulled out his phone to check if somebody had dropped him, and I'm like, "All right, well, we're converting Luke, so that's good." But it was pretty funny. If anybody dropped him, they're probably crying right now. So that's a rough
Begging
day.
their commissioner to allow him to be added back to the roster.
Please.
Please,
Look,
please,
dude,
no,
he
I didn't
just said
know.
he was going to retire. We already went through this with Andrew Luck. Like, I'm not going to hang on to the guy. Like, he's done. He's gone. Like, a top tier quarterback still retires, and oh no, I'm coming back. So,
Do you put 100% fab on that?
that's
Just
what
throw
we
it
were
all on
talking.
Tom Brady?
I think you do. Like, at that point, I'll take all my $0 claims after that. Like, I'll just put in 5 claims of $0 on people that I think I want if I have people to drop at that point. Like, I got Tom Brady on my team. What does it do for Tampa and the other people there?
That all of the free agents are going to look to re-sign instead of going somewhere else. 100%. I saw that. I think it was a tweet or something saying that the timing was pretty indicative of him trying to let people know right before they can
Yep.
start signing other places. Hey, maybe you want to come back. If
Yeah,
so, playoff Lenny if he comes back.
that is the biggest person I was going to talk about, but I don't know how their cap situation looks. They've been playing this game for a couple of years of bringing everybody in at veteran deals to go try and win a championship. And as of over the cap right now, it says they're $3 million over the salary cap. Now they just broke some news that they signed Ryan Jensen to a 3-year, like $39 million deal. There's obviously going to be some hoops that they have to jump through to get that to happen. Now, I don't know if this represents Tom Brady's contract or not, or how that all plays into it. I really don't know. So it's something I'll have to look into, but I definitely think they could be tight on money. So it's going to be interesting to see who does come back. Like you said, playoff Lombardi Lenny could definitely come back. But maybe they don't go with him. Maybe they go with somebody like James Conner or somebody else. There's quite a few running backs out there that are kind of in the fantasy world. They're kind of going over that hump, right? They're kind of going towards that spot where you don't really want to bank on these guys anymore. But one of those guys could go to Tampa on a cheap deal and ball out. And they
Just
franchise.
find who's willing to take a deal to play
Yep.
with Tom Brady.
They franchise tagged Godwin again, and Mike Evans is still there. So they're running it back, right? Like, they're going to try and do it again. And Field Yates tweeted out today Tom Brady's last 9 seasons, and it was something like win the Super Bowl, lose in the playoffs, win the Super Bowl, lose in the playoffs, win the Super Bowl, lose in the playoffs. And if you follow that pattern, he's ready to win the Super Bowl this year. So I don't know if he'll do it. Obviously, he had a few weeks off and was like, man, I can't do this. I'm going back to football. But the biggest thing that I am excited about is we get to hopefully, I'm assuming Gronk, Gronk, Gronk. We get to watch Gronk do it again next year. So,
I guess this squashes any chance of him going to the Bengals, right?
I would love to see him go up there with Joey B, but no, I
I
think I,
highly
I
doubt he
think
leaves Tommy.
he's there with Tom for another year, right? Like that's just what it looks like. So that's kind of the biggest breaking news, but there are a couple other things that we'll touch on, and a couple things that really affected the Cowboys. Amari Cooper did finally get traded. We were waiting on the release or the trade of Amari Cooper, and what they got for him was not a lot, but when you're selling him because of the contract, that's not a problem. You got more than you would by releasing him, and you
Yeah,
still save the money.
they might have also felt they didn't have a good chance of grabbing him if he did go to free agency and
Yeah.
he got his pick.
And there's a couple things I'll talk about with that when we talk about one of my running backs on this episode. So I have some interesting Baker facts that we'll talk about and how it may have affected that offense last year. So, but Mari Cooper out of town. Michael Gallup gets paid. I'm going to pull up the Michael Gallup contract, but as someone who, I'm biased, I'm a Cowboys fan. Give me your take on Michael Gallup and with Amari Cooper gone, what it may mean.
I feel like we don't truly know what Michael Gallup can be getting more featured in an offense than he's been so far. But I feel like if you have Michael Gallup on your team, you are definitely excited right now. You're probably feeling like you just have a little investment that suddenly shot up, like you got a crypto that went crazy, you know?
Yeah. Yep. So I just pulled it up. It's a 5-year, $62.5 million contract. So that puts him at about 12.5 a year. I think that's a great deal for Michael Gallup. I think that's not only a good price for him, I think it is still not him taking an injury discount. So I think that is a totally fair deal. I'm really not worried about it, like salary cap wise. I don't think he's being overpaid. As someone who, is a Cowboys fan, I can tell you I love Michael Gallup. He was a 3rd-round pick who just turned out to be a stud. And he is a incredible perimeter receiver. He's not a superstar. He's not going to be out there as your alpha wide receiver, but he's going to go. I think of him as like Mike Evans light. Okay. He may not be as big as Mike Evans. He's I don't see his height here, but he plays like it. He goes up, high points the ball. He's a big, tough alpha, like play style wide receiver, but he's not that guy you're throwing to every play. Like Chris Godwin plays that role in that offense. And that's what CeeDee Lamb will be. But when you look at what he does well, it's go up those contested catches. He's not a huge run after catch guy, but he dominates the sideline. And I think that's what they need. So with Schultz and Lamb, who can do all the crossers, all the over the middle stuff, I think he perfectly fits that offense. And I really think that for the price, when you can have Michael Gallup at $12.5 million or Amari Cooper for 20, I think that's fine. I'm happy with it. We talked about it earlier with Dalton Schultz expecting the franchise tag, and we talked about them wanting to bring back Gallup and Cedric Wilson. We haven't seen Cedric Wilson yet. They may get priced out of Cedric Wilson if they go into this week and they haven't gotten something done. But they did re-sign Noah Brown, who is it is what it is. He's a good depth wide receiver. He had some times where he got opportunities last year. But I don't really feel the Amari Cooper move hurts the Cowboys. Obviously, you're losing talent, right? So it obviously hurts. But when we look at the overall scheme of things, I think it frees up CeeDee Lamb to take it to the next level. CeeDee Lamb already had more targets than Amari Cooper, already had more yards than Amari Cooper. So I think it just allows him to take over that alpha role and let Michael Gallup, instead of Amari Cooper getting 800 yards and some touchdowns, it allows Michael Gallup to be more featured. And I think that is a plus. So
yeah, I think Michael Gallup has a real shot to be a solid wide receiver too this upcoming season.
Yep, I agree. And he has the ability to score touchdowns as well, which, though, when you look at Schultz and CeeDee Lamb being those top 2 targets, if you bring a guy down on CD Lamb in the red zone, well, Michael Gallup can go up over somebody in single coverage. That's not a problem. So he is a true red zone threat. He's a home run threat. He's the big play threat. That's just what he does as a player. He's not the possession guy. That's just his role, and I think he'll do well in it. But what does it do for Amari Cooper on the Browns? Where would are you moving him up, down? What are you doing with Amari Cooper?
I feel like this has to be a drop in value. He was already starting to drop off. It looked like things weren't super good over there
CD Lamb
with
ascending.
CD just kind of taking everything else, but more of the whole scheme kind of started spreading it out a lot more, and he was not getting much. He started vocally not being happy,
Yep.
but so he was already starting to go down in value. But now I feel like he's just not going to be that guy anymore. I think he's probably close to near the end of his relevancy as a good top wide receiver one. I think he's going to try and be a wide receiver too, but we'll see. We'll see how it pans out.
See, there is a world like they did allow Jarvis Landry to seek a trade after they went out and got Amari. So if Jarvis Landry is out and it's Donovan Peoples-Jones as the deep threat and Amari as that crisp route runner, I could see a world where they're good. However, they just run so much 12 personnel, 2 tight ends. They like having those big bodies in there, and they have 3 good tight ends. So there is a chance we see them move on from Austin Hooper, but it doesn't sound like they want to. And if we're looking at Jarvis being there as well still at the moment, it's a little crowded. I don't know who is going to be that guy, but I think Amari has the talent on that team to be their wide receiver one. It's just how much do you think that wide receiver one is going to produce?
Yeah, it's the history of the wide receiver one over there. With Jarvis after OBJ was gone, when OBJ was there, it hasn't been that amazing for him.
So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I will talk about in a moment to kind of play into the Amari Cooper. Baker Mayfield last year had the lowest attempts, not just completions and yards, the lowest passing attempts in his career. After being injured in week 6, Kareem Hunt was also gone. They were running the ball with Nick Chubb into brick walls because they couldn't pass the ball. His average depth of target was cut in half. And I listened to people talk about Josh Allen wearing that brace for a month and what it did to his QBR. And Matt Hasselbeck came out and talked about the same brace that Baker was wearing. And when you pull up the article about Baker getting hurt in week 6, it says he has to wear this brace to stop his shoulder from repeatedly dislocating. Okay. And he's getting hit by
out.
Yeah, we can't say enough how hurt Baker Mayfield was. And when we get to talking about QBs to buy and sell, Baker Mayfield will 100% be one of my QBs to buy at his current value. Now, this could very well be Baker Mayfield's last year in Cleveland. But I don't think it will be. I think we see Baker bounce back, look better than he did last year. If Baker looks like Baker from the first 2 years of his time in Cleveland, I think he gets a deal. I think this last year is just recency bias. We're so caught up with how bad he performed this year while not taking into account how many injuries he had, how much, we talk about not their wide receiver one not producing. Odell went there, had a torn ACL, and then couldn't even start the season on time. And then by the time he was playing, Baker was hurt. I know the narrative around Cleveland, and I think that may put Amari Cooper in buy territory. If you can go trade, say you've got early second round rookie picks or late first round rookie picks, I'll trade him straight up for Amari Cooper in a heartbeat. Now, if it was, top 6 pick, I'm not giving for Amari Cooper. But 7 through maybe 204, 205, I'd give him for Amari Cooper straight up in a heartbeat. But it just depends on what value you're getting there. So, those are a couple of the big pieces of news. Did we have any other big news you want to talk about before we get into running backs?
So this is a little minor, but there is random talks of Kirk Cousins possibly moving around. But looks like he got an extension. He's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I did forget about that one. It sounds like he got like a 1 year extension, making his current deal 2 years, where I think this was his last year, and he had like 45 million guaranteed. So they
Yeah, it helped smooth out the
yeah.
cap hits
So
too.
instead of a $45 million cap hit, he's down to like 32 and a half, and he got a bonus and I think a void year on there as well. And so they've
We're
kind
loving those
of
void years.
they took he was on his last year. They extended him, I think, just the 1 year, added a couple of void years, and spaced out his cap hit. So not a big deal, but a lot of people are saying this guarantees, him being their quarterback for 2022. And when I saw it, I thought there's been some rumors about him getting traded. What if the restructured contract just makes him more like it gives him a better trade market? I
I feel
don't
like teams would want to have done the restructuring themselves,
I
though.
agree. I agree. But they would have to trade for that $45 million contract and then bargain with Kirk. Now, I don't think that happens. There's part of that bonus. I didn't get to read into his contract more, but part of his bonus was like a $15 million roster bonus or something. And I don't know if that starts league year on Wednesday, or if that's 5 days after the league year, or when that actually hits. So there could be like a little window here where he could be traded, but I doubt it. I think he's the Vikings quarterback next year. Maybe he gets traded the year after that, but at this point, we've kind of seen the options. If you wanted to move on from Kirk Cousins, the options are kind of gone. So I don't think that really happens. I don't think you're moving on from Kirk Cousins to get a Trubisky, a Mariota, any of those guys. So I think he's pretty safe as their quarterback.
Yeah, I definitely. I also said that the Colts weren't going to move on from Wentz, so I was a bit wrong about that. But yeah, I don't think they're going to move on.
Yeah, I I think I think he's their quarterback this year at least. So, but
So who does that leave for the opening spots that are left? Like the Colts, who dumped Wentz and don't have an option left. Is just Jimmy G out there, and then
before
the Mariota, Trubisky, random guys who have tried it and failed?
Yeah, before we talk about them, I want to say one more thing about Kirk Cousins, and that's just the fact that he was risky going into the last year of his contract. He had all that guaranteed money. You knew he was going to be the quarterback for some team getting $45 million. But you didn't know what he was going to get after that, right? So
Hmm.
this adds another year of security to Kirk Cousins. So if you were looking to move on from Kirk Cousins this year, or try and sell him before he fell off that cliff or lost a job or anything like that, this could give him another year of. It's not a guarantee. They could still move on from anybody in the NFL these days, but it gives you a little bit more comfortability going into the future. So
Yeah, he's
just
definitely on
another
the
note.
quarterback hot seat,
Yeah.
but he's not out yet.
Yep. So, what were you were saying? Quarterbacks available still, or what teams need them? Like,
Yeah, I was saying because the Colts moved on from Wentz, and I said I didn't expect them to do it because who could they possibly switch to? So who's now left now that Kirk Cousins did his extension? It's Jimmy G.
a
Tom
name
Brady came in and answered one of the holes of that the quarterback carousel, but
a
is
name I've
it
been
just
hearing.
Jimmy G in the backups?
Matt Ryan.
I could see that one. I could actually see that one because of his contract is massive right now. They definitely want to move
I
on from
believe
it.
I believe they
They could
did
try and draft someone young.
restructure it a little bit this last week. So I'd have to look it up. Don't quote me on it. I do think they
I think they
restructured
did
it a little
actually,
bit.
yeah.
I don't know how much that changed his contract, but I believe they did reduce his cap hit a little bit. Maybe they just converted some to signing. I don't know. But with Tom Brady coming back in that division, if they were looking at, hey, maybe we can get one last hoorah at a Matt Ryan now that Tom Brady's out of the division, the Saints don't have a quarterback. Like maybe we can hang on to Matt Ryan and get this done, right?
Maybe he can win it. This division's weak. No one else has anybody.
But who knows? Maybe that plays a factor in it. I don't know. The Falcons are just a hot mess. So I would I would love to see Matt Ryan go somewhere and try to pull off a Matt Stafford and go win a ring, But
So how much does Tom Brady hurt the other two spots? How more willing are you to want to go try and be the quarterback over at Carolina or
if you're
over at New
Deshaun Watson
Orleans?
and you have to waive your no trade
If you're
clause,
Deshaun or if you're Jimmy G, yeah,
so if you're Deshaun Watson, I don't think it matters, right? Because you're talking about probably 1 year of Tom Brady. He's already retired once.
that's fair.
So I don't really think you are those younger guys who are looking at a 3-4 year window are as worried. I think the Matt Ryans who may be looking at a 1 to 2 year window are more worried. So I wouldn't expect to see a veteran go into that division at this point, right? So you wouldn't want to see somebody choose to compete against Tom Brady if they were only going to choose to be there for 1 year, right? You don't want to play in that division. You're setting yourself up for failure. You got to come in, learn a new offense, and then compete against Tom Brady. I just don't. I don't see that being a hot landing spot as anymore. Now, you look at the culture and the history of the Saints, and you would expect them to still have some pull. I don't think it's as much there anymore with Sean Payton being gone. So I think that takes away from the opportunity of a veteran quarterback coming in there or like a Deshaun Watson maybe. But I really don't know. I think Tom Brady's biggest impact is on Matt Ryan and them possibly moving on. I don't think any Deshaun Watson cares if he's got to play against Tom Brady for 1 year if he's going to be there for 5.
Yeah,
But
that's completely fair.
but let's talk about these running backs. Okay, we're going to give you two each. We're going to give you two players that we think are buys and two players that we think you may be able to sell high or get out of before everything comes crashing down. So the first running back that I am going to talk about as a buy candidate is Travis Etienne. So uh, on the flip side of that, you've got the sell of James Robinson, right? He tore his Achilles late in the year. We didn't get to see Travis Etienne at all last year, but he was a first round pick. Not only that, he played with Trevor Lawrence. I'm not saying he's going to be Jamar Chase to Joe Burrow, but there is comfortability there. And we looked at their snaps, and it was Carlos Hyde and James Robinson all year. Neither of those guys are going to be available next year. So we may see them bring somebody in to maybe run the ball between the tackles a little bit more if they don't want to give Etienne 3-down work. But right now, he's on RotoWire, he's number 22. This is just running back rank, not overall. He's the 22nd running back. And on Fantasy Pros, he's ranked 20. So I think there is a very clear path for him to become a top 12 running back. And that could be for the life of him and Trevor Lawrence. So they were both first round picks. They both have 5th-year options. We're talking about 4 more years where they could be playing together. And limited competition, all right? Like they would have to bring somebody in to run the ball at this point against Travis Etienne. So I think that the path for him to be skyrocketing up draft boards is coming as we get to the those redraft ADPs and stuff, and we start seeing who's really available and where those running backs are going. We may be able to kind of judge what his value is right now a little bit more, how low you're able to get him. But right now, if he's 20 and 22 for Fantasy Pros and RotoWire, I'm buying him. I'm all in. There are guys ahead of that I would trade straight up for. I'd trade Cam Akers straight up for Travis Etienne right now. But Cam Akers is one of my sell players on this episode. So we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But who's your or do you have anything you want to say on Travis Etienne before we go to your first buy player?
Yeah, I was definitely gonna say, it feels like people are gonna start getting more hyped on these rookies that are coming out, and they're gonna start wanting those draft picks. And Travis Etienne hasn't done anything, and his hype has died off for a year. So you can definitely do a swap that's pretty in your favor. Try and get a nice low draft pick for Etienne. Real
Yeah.
good trade there.
Yep. And especially once we get into the rookie draft and people see how many running backs are going to be taken this year, opposed to the like 5 or 6 we had last year. There are 10 to 15 running backs that could be drafted in rookie drafts this year. It'll probably go down to closer to that 8 to 10 number once we get to the draft. But there's just so many talented prospects compared to last year. Last year we had 5, 6. Outside of the top guys, there was Gainwell and Hubbard and Ramondre Stevenson, and later you were stealing those Elijah Mitchells and Khalil Herberts and stuff late in the draft. But like, we have prospects that are much higher than that. They're going to be these guys. We probably have 5 guys after the top 3 running backs in this class who are ahead of all of those Gainwell, Hubbard, all of those guys. So it like you said, those draft picks, as you get close to your rookie draft, they go up in value. So
Yeah, you can easily try and trade your low second, grab ETN. I definitely see that being pretty solid. Another guy who I think you could probably do a trade like that, where you're sitting there in the second round, you're not liking the people that are left, or maybe you're just unsure about them. You can go ahead and grab a guy that I think people are hating on, but he's been a back-to-back, I believe, RB1, top 12 RB finisher, and Josh Jacobs, and he is still super young. I don't think they're going to bring much competition in when they still have Kenyon Drake for one more year, and Kenyon Drake isn't going to take much. I think you can definitely get a super solid deal on Josh Jacobs if you're looking to grab yourself a solid running back that you can depend on. Because even when he's hurt, you see him, he'll go out there, he'll make the play, and then he'll limp back to the sideline, rest for a play or two, go back out there, make another big play, and then just go limp right back. It was
yeah,
crazy to watch last year.
it's like he would run for 12 yards, limp off the field, and then 3 plays later he's in, he runs for 20 yards, and he limps off the field, and then he comes in and scores the touchdown. It's like, okay, like, I guess that works. It's just it's going to be interesting to see what they do. I don't know. Do you know if Kenyon Drake is healthy to start the year? I know he got hurt at the end of last year, but I don't know if it was a real serious injury. Do you know?
I'm not too sure about his status. Let me see if I can find anything for you.
Yeah, I'll look it up there. But I know the. I think they restructured his contract a little bit this last week. Kenyon
Yeah, I'm
Drake's.
seeing that too.
But yeah, I could see Josh Jacobs doing it again.
Yeah, and people like to say he's not a pass catching receiver.
He
If
was
you look at his
much more
games, just look at
involved.
his weeks.
Yes, much more involved.
Starting week 4, 5 targets, 3 targets, 4, 5, 7, 4, 5, 6, 4, 3, 4, 7.
Yeah, he's just right in that
It's
sweet spot.
insane. It's it's right where you want him to be.
Yeah, the same way you're talking about him is how I feel about Zeke, right? Like Zeke split some time with Pollard, and Tony Pollard was almost a viable flex play, but like Zeke was playing hurt and put up, he's very similar to Josh Jacobs. A lot of people discredit what they did because they kept playing while they were hurt and they didn't miss games, and some of their points per game are a little bit lower, but they're consistent and they play. And it's like, when I'm looking at an RB2 that has RB1 upside and plays almost every game, and like I think that's good. And you're not getting that 30-point week, but Josh Jacobs could go rush in 3 touchdowns in a game. Zeke is a goal line threat. He's clearly their goal line guy. So even those guys who may not be that top 6 running backs, where they're explosive, they can give you those crazy week-winning games, they're still valuable, and they're still an RB1. And as much as you can say, well, his points per game sucked, he still finished as an RB1, and I'm not going to discredit where he finished because other guys got hurt. These guys are playing hurt. So I've been convinced on Josh Jacobs. I was fading Josh Jacobs for a long time, and you have helped convince me. So
Yeah, for the scoring that he can provide,
yeah.
and for the value you can get him in, you can grab him easily with a trade for a late second. People want these draft picks more than they like Josh Jacobs for some reason right now.
Yep, but it's crazy. I mean, running backs are they're so expendable in the NFL now. Like, we've got Breece Hall, who is going to be a second round pick, and everybody else could be not even in the second round. But they're talented running backs. It's just that the NFL's uh, the value that they put on running backs in the draft isn't real high. You know, we saw Saquon and Zeke. But those were the. Was there any other big names recently that went near the top of the draft? Not that I can remember. But
No, they've been so this last year they were what, both in the 20s?
yeah,
And coming up it sounds like there's none in the first, so they're starting to fall out.
yeah.
They're definitely starting to fall out.
But the next one I'm going to talk about as a potential buy, this is actually kind of a pair. So it's Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris. Um, Damian Harris is obviously going to be the one that's ranked a little bit higher. He had an insane touchdown percentage last year. But I think we've seen what Mac Jones is going to be, right? Mac Jones, I obviously expect him to take more steps forward and continue to grow in the NFL. But I think what we've seen from that offense is they want to run the ball, and they are going to run the ball. And right now, Brandon Bolden's gone. James White is gone. I don't know. I believe J.J. Taylor and those guys are still there, but it's Damian Harris and Ramondre Stevenson. Those are the two guys. And I don't expect everything to change randomly in the Patriots to start using one singular running back. Granted, they've got McDaniels in Las Vegas now, so who knows what actually happens. But if either of those guys go down, you are talking about an RB1. You are talking about a league-winning RB1 if either of those guys are injured. Right now, RotoWire's got him at 25 and 32. Fantasy Pros has him at 27 and 31. They're almost being valued identically. Now, Damian Harris, obviously a little bit higher. He scored, I believe, 15 rushing touchdowns last year. But he's also on the last year of his rookie deal. So if you go buy Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris gets hurt in week 3 and you have a league-winning running back who's putting up RB1 numbers every week, and then you go into the offseason and Damian Harris leaves, you're talking about a big payday. And this is a guy who was getting drafted in the 3rd and 4th round of rookie drafts last year. So if you can buy Ramondre Stevenson, I think you should. If you can buy Damian Harris, I think you should. The problem is there's a lot of hype around both guys. So, yeah, these rankings of mid-20s and early 30s for the two respectively is I don't think you're able to go and trade for them at that price. But if you can, you should. And so I think if you're getting them at that value, it's an insane opportunity. You're, a Jets fan, so you hate the Patriots and won't
I don't
roster
play
them.
with
But
Patriots players. I only
yeah,
play with 31 teams in
I do
fantasy.
appreciate your conviction in the matter. But what's your take on these guys?
Um, I'm just not sure how much they're going to take away from each other and what they like to do over there with the carousel of running backs. They always have so many that are randomly taking a bunch of touches. Brandon Bolden, what's his name? James White. I'm not even sure if who's going to be back or not, but I think we do have a new outlook with them no longer having their OC over there. Good old McDaniels. He's finally actually left instead of pretending like he's leaving. So they could have a completely new identity on offense. Those guys can be far more potent in fantasy coming up. I can definitely see it happening.
Yeah, I think on top of that, both of them get that upside of if either of the other guys goes. The biggest thing in for either of them is the fact that they're sharing the backfield, right? So I think that the opportunity for them to get a full workload. I mean, we saw how many players got hurt last year. Damian Harris fought injuries. When I talk about these sell guys, we're going to talk about a guy who, even with injuries around him, didn't succeed. But, um, and that's relative, obviously, because when I talk about that guy, you're going to be like, didn't succeed. That's crazy. But who's your next buy candidate at running back?
So my next buy is a guy that I think we have a lot more knowledge on him not going to have a competition here with some interesting contract trading. over there on the Washington Commanders. I'm talking about Antonio Gibson. Whereas those Commanders, where are they at now? They're at 5 million on cap space.
Yeah.
I'm not too worried about them trying to sign someone to have competition with Antonio Gibson. I think Antonio Gibson played a lot of the beginning part of the season and all the way through. I think, what is it, 3 quarters of the season hurt? I think he's
Yeah.
finally healthy. He's able to be a true bell cow guy for that team.
He had what, a
I think
bone
he could
bruise on his
start.
shin
Yeah,
or stress
he had a
fracture
stress
or
fracture.
yeah.
Yeah, it was a stress fracture or something like that. And I feel like he can definitely take a huge step forward coming here. I think he can potentially be in the top 6. I think he'll probably try and fight for the top 12, but I think he can potentially be top 6 upcoming year. And I think you can definitely get him for cheaper than that price point normally would be.
Yeah. My only counter to that is, right now he's ranked a top 12 running back most places. I think it's
Yeah, it's
really good.
all dependent on how your league's valuing him. If
Yeah,
they're
and
trying to value him at that price, I don't think you can do it. But if people are starting to hate on him, if people don't like Wentz there and think anyone who's touching him is going to be terrible, you
yeah.
can definitely try and capitalize on him dropping in value.
Yep, I do agree. I think that what he did after McKissick got hurt shows you what he can be, and I think that that was still playing, nursing that injury. So we'll see what happens going forward. I do think they are a team who could possibly draft a running back. So if they do draft a running back, that could cut into that a little bit. Especially there are some good pass catchers in this class, some good third down backs. So maybe they do that. That was the biggest problem with Antonio Gibson was he wasn't getting third downs, and so if he gets that role, he's going to be great. I think he'll be phenomenal. You can't forget start of last year before nursing that injury and not knowing how much he was going to be playing, and Ron Rivera was talking about wanting to make him into Christian McCaffrey. Now, if he's healthy and JD McKissick is gone and they use him like Christian McCaffrey, he'll be incredible. I got to see it. I mean, I
Yeah, and even with how he did hurt, I just looked him up. He ended 12 on the season on total
yep,
points.
yeah.
So he was still right there at the end of top 12.
And he scores touchdowns. He's good at it. And the upside that we're talking about with him getting has more to do with his pass catching than anything else. Because down the stretch, he was getting that rushing work that you wanted. It was really just the fact that on passing downs, J.D. McKissick was in the game, or even when he was in the game and he's running the same routes as McKissick, he wasn't getting looked at. And it was just a weird situation there. It's going to be interesting to see how Carson Wentz affects that. But like you said, Carson Wentz cap affects a lot of things. And they don't have a lot of money to go out and do things now. I don't know if the number we're looking at takes into account, some of the guys that have left there. I believe, Landon Collins is gone and some of those guys. But I believe it should be up to date. But yeah, it looks like them taking a lot of that Carson Wentz contract is going to affect them a lot. So
Yeah, they're only going to be looking to build through the draft if they're trying to grab too much. They aren't going to be too big of players in free agency unless they figure something out with this cap space.
And they didn't have to get rid of too much capital to get Carson Wentz. So it'll be...
Yeah, and I don't view it as 2/3. Everyone says it's 2/3. I view it as a second and a third, and the
well, that's
second
what
could
it is.
possibly be downgraded because that's really
Yes.
what it is. It's more likely than not it's going to be a second.
Yeah.
It's not. It's very unlikely it's going to be a third. But hey, anything could happen. Anything could happen.
Yep, he could get hurt and play 2 games, and all of a sudden it's still a third. So anything could
So
happen.
second, third for Carson, or second, fourth, and sixth for Sam Darnold. Which one would you rather have?
That's a great question. I don't know. They have similar play styles, is all I'm gonna say. But
trying to play hero ball at the worst times.
Yes, yeah. Like every play, you have to score a touchdown. But when you're playing in the big leagues, you got to understand the whole game, and every play doesn't have to be a touchdown. And sometimes the negatives outweigh the attempt. So we're gonna go on to sell running backs, and my first one, like I said, when you hear me say sell this guy, you're gonna be like, what? That's crazy. How could you? It's Nick Chubb. And Nick Chubb, he's ranked number 4 on RotoWire, 11 on Fantasy Pros. He's a top 12 running back on both. I talked a little bit about Baker Mayfield's attempts. Well, not only did Baker Mayfield have the least attempts passing the ball in his career, Kareem Hunt was also gone most of the year. And in the time that Kareem Hunt was gone from week 6 on, week 6 was also when Baker got hurt. In the time after that, his only good games were against Green Bay, terrible running defense, the Raiders, meh, the Lions, and the Bengals. And the Bengals, he also broke a 70-yard touchdown run. So those were his 4 good games in the second, 2/3 of the season. In the first 5 weeks, he was splitting carries with Kareem Hunt at a 2-to-1 ratio. Now, they were getting a ton of carries. When I say splitting carries 2-to-1, it was 24-12. So we're talking a ton of carries for these guys. But after Hunt went out and after Baker got hurt, we saw people start stacking the box. You knew what the team was going to do. And Nick Chubb was force-fed the ball. He ended with, I think he was second in rushing yards at the end of the season. I think he was, the problem we're having with Nick Chubb, I think, is what people think we have with Josh Jacobs. Because he really doesn't catch the ball. He was involved a little bit more this year, but that was also due to no Kareem Hunt and Baker being so hurt. Right? He was being forced to check the ball down. His average,
his targets
his
are
air yards,
low.
His air yards were he had 5 air yards per attempt, where in his career is 9.6 for Baker last year when he was hurt. So it's just, I talked about Baker earlier. I think they throw the ball more. I think they are going to involve these tight ends that they franchise tagged Njoku. I think that is the goal for this offense. And I think Kareem Hunt can only hurt Nick Chubb coming back. And he was not there for a lot of the year. So I think overall, the rushing touchdown percentage of this offense goes down. And his share of the rushing workload goes down. And their passing attempts go up. So for me, if you can get running back 4 through 10 value for Nick Chubb, I'm selling him. Nick Chubb is also, he's a great running back, but let's look at his contract.
Yeah, so looking at his targets, or his receptions rather, he had only 2 weeks. He had 3 receptions. Everything else 2, 1, or 0.
Yep.
That is not good.
And he signed a 3-year, $36 million deal with the Browns. He has an out after 2023, so going into 2024, with no dead cap, but he has no dead cap next year. So he's got a $14.8 million cap hit next year with 0 dead cap. How many teams keep a running back, or any player for that matter, that they can save $15 million and have nothing count against the cap? Not a lot.
Yeah, it's not looking good for him.
So that's why I am out on Nick Chubb. I think Nick Chubb is a great football player. I think he will go somewhere.
There's still a lot of people who value him really high too right now.
And I think that's fair. I think there's an argument to value Nick Chubb that high, but that's why I'm selling him. So I want to sell him before there's no more argument for him to be that high. Because
it's definitely that looks like a situation where you can capitalize on his value being a little bit higher than what it might actually turn out to be here.
Now, we're not damning Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb could very well be cut next year and go sign and replace Damian Harris on the Patriots, who's gone, and be an RB1 for the next 3 years.
Watch him go somewhere new and get 6+ receptions a game. An insane pass catching guy out of nowhere.
That is in the realm of possibilities, right? So you can't just say, all right, this is the dagger for Nick Chubb. No. but I think it's enough of an unknown future for me to get his value now. Because, like I said, I look at my dynasty team in a 3 to 5 year window, and the only people I want to know what they're like the only people I want a 1 year window on is a veteran that I can get rid of when they're not valuable anymore. I don't want somebody like Nick Chubb who, if Nick Chubb gets cut next year, I can't drop him. He's going to go somewhere. He's going to be on a team. Even if it's a terrible landing space, I can't drop him. Whereas if I go get last year, right, I went and traded for Emmanuel Sanders before he eventually didn't matter, but I can drop him. I went and got players like, you look at these older quarterbacks we've talked about, like Kirk Cousins, Matt Ryan. These are guys that, yeah, you may not have a 3 to 5 year window, but you know that when that window ends, it's not because they're changing teams. Like, because of their age that they're already out of their prime. And you're looking at that window differently than you would one of these young players. And so I think Nick Chubb, people expect to have on their team for the next 5 years, and that's why his value is so high. But that's not the case. That's not reality. I don't expect him to be on the Browns when he's got a $15 million cap hit and no dead cap. So that's my first sell. Anything else you want to add before we go on to your first sell running back?
I do want to say there's a bit of similarity in the situation between the running back we just went over and the running back I'm about to talk about here. But mine definitely has a guy who's coming to try and steal his job real bad in the monster of AJ Dillon. I'm talking about Aaron Jones, and I'm not even sure if I'm actually on team by AJ Dillon. I think I'm kind
Yeah.
of shying away from both of these guys right now until I know who's going to do what here. But Aaron Jones is still being valued as one of the top running backs, but he's hitting that 27 age, which is apparently the peak where most running backs start to drop off. Has the young guy for sure on the team that's going to start knocking away at his opportunities. But there is still Aaron Rodgers there who loves the guys that he trusts. So he could force more options there, but how much longer is Aaron going to be there? Do we officially have that contract extension? Was it 4 years?
I haven't seen the official contract
I remember
extension.
he came out and said, "Whoa, whoa, that's not right,"
Yeah.
and then I haven't heard anything since.
Yeah, Rap Sheet
But
was holding firm on it, so I don't know who his source is, but he's clearly confident in it. But no, I agree with you. I think Aaron Jones is
this
a good,
definitely feels like the time to sell him at his peak.
and you may already be past his peak. I
Yeah,
think you
some
may
people
be.
are dropping.
I think you may be looking for that guy who you can still sell him at your peak too, but I don't know if you'll get it from a lot of people. Like Fantasy Pros has already dropped him down out of their top 15 to 17. And RotoWire still has him in the top 10 at 9, but I
Yeah, and I
think,
do think he'll still be a decent RB2. So if the value's dropping too much, don't sell him for anything. Don't just
yeah,
sell him for dirt.
yeah.
But if you can get him when he's high,
But I think last year when Aaron Jones had that knee injury and we saw AJ Dillon step up into that role, we never saw it go back to just Aaron Jones, right? So we started the year and Aaron Jones came back. He re-signed with the Packers and it looked like it was still his job. And we thought, oh, is AJ Dillon going to be this guy that we were hyping up? And then we thought he was going to get his opportunity. And then Aaron Jones came back and now AJ Dillon doesn't matter. Well, I was always in the camp of they wanted to use two backs because we saw what they did with Jamal Williams. Now, I look at what they did once AJ Dillon kind of earned that playing time when Aaron Jones was hurt. They didn't go away from him anymore. He was out there all the time. And not just in power situations. He was catching passes. He was involved in every phase of the offense. So I don't know how much of that has to do with Aaron Jones and that knee injury. You know, he came back real fast. We thought it was going to be a season ender. So, you know, maybe he wasn't 100%. Maybe that has something to do with it. But I think A.J. Dillon has clearly earned a place on the field. And we have heard Aaron Rodgers, like you said, Aaron Rodgers has those guys you trust. We saw it with Randall Cobb. But we've heard him talk a lot about A.J. Dillon, and everything has been positive. So I don't know if you're able to sell Aaron Jones as a top 10 running back anymore. But if you can, do it in a heartbeat. I'm with you. So
Yeah, if you can sell him high, do it. I definitely think that it's not worth selling him too low, though. He's gonna be relevant for another couple of years as at least an RB2. But
yep.
if he's still being valued as an RB1, definitely try and sell him. Try and cash out now.
And he only came back on a 2-year contract, so this is year 2 of that deal. So this could very well be the last year of Aaron Jones' viability as a fantasy running back. We may see him go somewhere that's real needy for a running back. Like if Aaron Jones, say we're next off season, and Aaron Jones made it through last year relatively healthy, but the current situation of like the Falcons or something, you could definitely see him going somewhere like that after this, kind of like Todd Gurley did after the Rams, and maybe have some relevancy going forward. But he's never going to be what you wanted him to be. His value is only going to go down from here as we see AJ Dillon earn more and more. But no, I think that's a good one. Another guy that when I tell you to sell him, you're either going to be on one side of yelling about how dare you trade this guy, or the other side of I can't believe you still have this guy, and that's Cam Akers. You're either in the camp of nobody comes back from an Achilles injury, blah, 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 or you're in the camp of he came back so fast, this dude's an athlete, they clearly love him, they threw him out there. Yeah, he wasn't as efficient, but like he recovered so fast and he hadn't had time to practice and get conditioned and all this stuff, which viable arguments. I'm all for them. I still have Cam Akers in a league where I just don't know what to trade him for. And that's the biggest thing is I don't know what I want to trade Cam Akers for. And if I can trade him for a mid first round pick and take a Kenneth Walker, I think I'm in. I think I'm in for that. And if somebody else wants to trade him away for a mid second, I think I might go buy him. So it really depends on what the price is. But I think we did see the commitment to him by the team. I think these guys are going to try and run it back and do it with Cam Akers this time. We saw a lot of Sony Michel last year. A lot. And he's gone. We're going to see Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson. Those are the two guys. Darrell Henderson has had a lot of trouble staying healthy. Cam Akers just missed the whole season, almost. Like, I don't want to bet on either of these guys right now. So if I can get a mid first, I'm selling him. If I can get more than that, I'm definitely selling him. If I can get a running back that some people see as a downgrade, maybe, one of those guys we talked about, like a Damian Harris or Mondre Stevenson, a Travis Etienne, a Josh Jacobs, and if I could trade him straight up for Antonio Gibson, that's a no-brainer, right? But Antonio Gibson is ranked 11 by RotoWire, and Cam Akers is ranked 12.
If you can pull that off, I think I would definitely take that. If I could do straight up, because I think I have Cam Akers. If I could trade him for Gibson, I think I would.
I don't think you could right now, but that's the range that they're being ranked. And so if you could go maybe just a step below that, and
maybe if they're a Rams fan, you could pull it off.
Yeah. Maybe if they're a Rams fan. But if you could get maybe that next tier of guys, like the Josh Jacobs tier, the Ezekiel Elliott even, that tier of players, and maybe get a third round pick or something with it, I'll do it. So I think it's all subjective on the price. That's one of the biggest things. All these guys we talk about buying and selling, it's based off of their current value and what people see them as. That could change next week. That could change tomorrow. Tom Brady could unretire, and all of a sudden, I will trade more for Mike Evans than I would have 6 hours ago. So it's just how fast things change. But let's go into the last running back that you have here as your sell. Now, this one, I'm just going to preface it by saying he is a little bit lower ranked, but there is some hype around him, right? Like there's some buzz because of how he finished the year and how he was used in the playoffs. So take it away.
He was finishing the year getting better and better every week. I remember looking at it. It was every week for the last 5 or 6 weeks he started doing better and better. It's Devin Singletary. I am not buying into that hype. I'm not buying into the hotness. We saw Matt Breida get hot for a couple weeks and then randomly vanish. That team can make people look hot randomly because they have no one good and they'll randomly start force feeding these guys. And sometimes they'll have some streaks, but I really don't think that's sustainable. I don't think he's going to be a consistent starter. I don't think you will be feeling comfortable having him on your team in a starter position. If you can sell him off of someone hyped up on him, I definitely think it's time to move on from Devin Singletary.
What's his peak, right? He's a peak flex play every week, maybe
Yeah,
RB2
he's
if he
throw it in your
keeps the role he
flex,
had.
or if he had that hype, he was getting up to, I think he was scoring in mid 20s for the last 2 weeks. So that would definitely make him an every week starter, but he's definitely not going to be doing that. He's going to be like trying to push double digits on weeks. I don't
Yeah.
feel high on him.
And going into the season, he was, his ceiling was really like passing game upside, right? And now he ended the year with getting carries, and that was one of the biggest problems with that offense is they wouldn't commit to a running back, and we just saw different guys, different weeks scoring. Zach Moss inactive one week, active the next week. Then he doesn't even play. It's just they had a weird situation there. But again, this is a place we have to keep in mind. Their offensive coordinator is now the head coach of the Giants. There could be a new philosophy there. There could be them committing to a guy. Now, I don't think Devin Singletary is a running back that you commit to be the guy. I think Zach Moss has a better chance of being the guy than Singletary, and I don't think he has a good chance at all. So they, like we talked about as running back landing spots, it's kind of awkward because of the draft capital that they've put into Zach Moss and Devin Singletary. But I still feel like they haven't found their guy. So I think if you can sell Singletary, great. I think where he's ranked right now, if you can buy him for pennies, it doesn't hurt you to leave him on your roster. But if you can, like you said, if you can find that guy who's hyped up by how he ended the year, if you can go sell that to somebody and get
If
something
someone
more,
believes in we were talking about some guys, if you can find some value, if someone still believes in, like, Cordero Patterson was one of the random names, Miles Gaskin,
yeah,
people still believe these guys before the draft happens, before free agency opens up, try and get rid of them, because as soon as they
yep.
sign someone bigger, as soon as they draft that young guy, their value is gone completely.
Well,
You're
that's
just
just
stuck with them. You drop them, or you trade them for a last round pick.
that's the same thing we're looking at here with Saquon, right? Saquon is 25 years old. He was a top draft pick. He had a little bit of rumors here going into the offseason. Now they have the offensive coordinator from Buffalo as their head coach. And if they go draft a third-round running back and split time with Saquon Barkley, do you know how mad Saquon Barkley owners are going to be? But, they've got a lot of money invested in Saquon. I don't know if they would do something like that, but we got to keep in mind those coaches bounce around and different guys don't want to commit to a running back and different guys use a committee. So we'll have to see what happens. And I think Devin Singletary is a great sell candidate. It's just, what are you going to get for him? If you could sell Devin Singletary for a mid third round pick right now, would you do it?
I think if you're in a league that has defense IDP mixed in, definitely would probably consider that. If it was a straight offense, I don't know if that'd be enough because the straight offense drafts,
Falls
they
off
dry
after
out
that
quick.
second round.
You might just hold it just in case, but yeah, it really just depends how you feel. But I definitely think it's pretty close to that. It's
Yeah.
pretty close.
I think once we get to the draft season, it'll be that, just because like we've talked about, that those running backs that are going to fall into that middle tier in this draft. I think I would trade Devin Singletary for any of them, right? So if I can get any of those third round, this is a Hassan Haskins or any of those guys in a third round rookie draft, I think I'm cool just trading Devin Singletary for them, especially if it's a guy that I can stash on my taxi squad and see if he pans out. I'm cool with it. But I would also go out and give a fourth round pick for Devin Singletary. So I might give a late 3rd round pick for Devin Singletary, depending on what your running back situation is like and if you need to take a flyer. So I can see it both ways. Again, just want to put the emphasis on when we talk about buying and selling, we're talking about at this value. If you can get them at premium, if you could sell them low.
Yeah, don't overpay for these guys. Don't undersell these guys just because we say buy sell. Yeah.
Don't sell somebody low just because they're on a sell list. You know, I'm not selling Nick Chubb for pennies. If I'm selling Nick Chubb, I'm getting a haul for Nick Chubb. But I'm doing it because I'm worried about the future. So, I think that is a good place for us to end it today. The goal for Wednesday, I think we're going to talk about wide receivers in this same sort of function. Some wide receivers you can go get. We'll break down any of the breaking free agent news that we're getting on Monday, Tuesday, and then go from there. So we'll find a time to fit in the quarterbacks, tight ends in here. Maybe we'll add a tight end on one single tight end onto our wide receiver episode for our pass catchers. And then maybe we can talk about quarterbacks and some IDP buy sells on Friday. So it sounds like a schedule we'll use for this week, kind of just to give you a heads up of what's to come. I've talked about those videos on Patreon for the rookie profiles I'm going to be doing. The first one is going to be going out this week. It is going to be a running back that we all expect to be the 101 in Breece Hall. So it's kind of a information set that we already have, but we're going to go through those top 10 and we're just going to start at number 1, work our way down from there. So expect the Breece Hall prospect kind of highlight and overview coming this week on Patreon. Again, those are going to be Patreon only. It will be the first one. So if you're looking at Patreon and saying how much content do these guys have on here, it is coming and it is growing. So take a look at that. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. As we got some feedback last week that, hey, there's not enough IDP podcasts out there. If you need one and you have questions, let us know so we can talk about it. Just know those IDP episodes are probably coming on Friday. So thanks for watching, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.